Okay, let's take a look at this review on distance, formula, slope, midpoint, and parabolas and circles. Okay, first question says, find the perimeter of a quadrilateral with vertices at -3, 5. Let me get a pen here. So -3, 5 for A. B is at 1, 4. C is at 4, 0. And D is at -1, -3. Okay, so remember to find the perimeter. You will find the sums of the lengths of the sides. So AB is equal to the square root of -3 minus 1 squared plus 5 minus 4 squared. So that would be -4 squared is 16 plus 1, the square root of 17. Then BC is equal to the square root of 1 minus 4 squared plus 4 minus 0 squared. So that's going to be -3 squared, which is 9, 4 squared, which is 16, square root of 25 is 5. Then CD is equal to the square root of 4 plus 1 squared plus 0 minus 3 plus 3 squared actually. So 25 plus 9, so the square root of 34. And finally, AD is equal to the square root of -3 plus 1 squared plus 5 plus 3 squared. So that's going to be 4 squared, or no, excuse me, 2 squared, which is 4, plus 8 squared, which is 64, square root of 68, which we can simplify to 2 square root of 17. So the perimeter is the length of the sum of the sides. Please leave it in simplest radical form. We don't need to convert these to a decimal. The perimeter is 5 plus 3 square root of 17 plus the square root of 34. So that's the perimeter for the first problem. Number 2 says a quadrilateral has vertices at -1, 1. So there's A. B is at 3, 2. C is at 2, -3. And D is at -2, -4. And you are asked to determine what this quadrilateral is. When I look at it, I'm pretty sure it's not a square or rectangle. I don't see any right angles there, and you could get that pretty easily. I do believe that it is either a parallelogram or a rhombus, so I have to prove either, if I'm proving it's a rhombus, I have to have 4 congruent sides and opposite sides parallel. If I'm proving it's a parallelogram, I have to have either opposite slopes parallel, diagonals bisect each other. Using the midpoint formula, I could show one pair of opposite sides both parallel and congruent. So remember, there were like 4 different ways that you could prove it's a parallelogram. So I think I will prove that the diagonals DB and AC bisect each other. So I'm going to find the midpoint of AC, and that is -1 plus 2 over 2 and 1 minus 3 over 2. So this would be 1/2 and -1. Then the midpoint of DB the midpoint of DB will be 3 plus 2 over 2. That doesn't look great. And, oh, I'm sorry, I used C. That's what's wrong. I knew that didn't look great. Okay, so this is a -2. I'm using D and B. So I have 3 minus 2 and 2 minus 4 over 2. So that gives me again 1/2 and minus 1. So that proves that this is a parallelogram. Now I want to make sure that it's not a rhombus because it could be a rhombus. So I'm going to take a look at the length of side AB, which would be minus 1 minus 3 squared plus 1 minus 2 squared. The square root of negative 4 squared is 16, negative 1 squared is 1, so that's the 17. So AB is the square root of 17. I'll take a look at BC. Since I know it's a parallelogram, I only have to take a look at BC and see what that looks like. So I have 3 minus 2 squared, and then I have 2 minus negative 3 becomes plus 3 squared. So I have the square root of 1 plus 25, which is 26. So it's not a rhombus because I don't have congruent sides. So it is just a parallelogram. Number 3 says find the center and radius of the circle whose equation is given by this formula. So I have x squared plus 4x plus y squared plus 6y equals 3. Complete the square for both the x and y. So I'll add 4 to both sides, and then I will add 9 to both sides. Okay, because you take b divided by 2 and square that. Write each of these as a binomial squared, so x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals, what is that, 16. So the center of my circle is at minus 2, minus 3, and my radius is 4. Remember, standard form of the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Number 4, write in standard form the equation of a circle whose diameter has endpoints at negative 3, 5 and 4 minus 1. So you want the equation of the circle who has the endpoints of their diameter at these 2 points. So you can find the midpoint of IN is the center of the circle. So the midpoint, minus 3 plus 4 over 2, and 5 minus 1 over 2. So the midpoint is at 1/2 and 2. Then you need to find the radius of the circle. So the radius is equal to the square root of one of the endpoints. For example, you could take 4 and that midpoint, minus 1/2 squared, plus minus 1 minus 2 squared. So the radius is equal to the square root of 8 halves, which then becomes 7 halves squared, plus negative 3 squared, which is 9. So the radius is equal to the square root of 49 fourths plus 9. Come on up here and finish. The radius is equal to the square root of 49 ninths plus 36 ninths. So the radius is equal to the square root of 85. Actually, that's fourths. I'm sorry, that's fourths. 85 fourths. So the radius is equal to the square root of 85 over 2. You're asked for the standard form of the equation. So that is x minus 1/2 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 85 fourths for number 4. Number 5, I didn't give you enough information on this, so we're going to assume that the point of tangency on the circle, and that point 47 is the diameter of the circle. So if it is tangent to the circle, and we know we have a point here, and it's tangent, this is the diameter. So the midpoint of that diameter, again, is going to be the center of the circle, and that will be at 4 and 3.5. Then the radius, of course, is just, it's a vertical line, and you know that it is 3.5. So you can easily get the equation of the line, x minus 4 squared plus y minus 3.5 squared equals 12.25. Number 6, determine the equation of a circle that passes through these 3 points. So you can sketch the graph at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, 8, and then at 10, 3. Okay, so you're looking for this point, x, y. Now, if this is a right triangle, you know that that point is the midpoint of the hypotenuse, if it's a right triangle. And it kind of looks like it might be, so I'm going to look at the slopes of DO and the slope of OT. So DO is 8 minus 4 over 6 minus 1. So I get the slope of this is 4/5. Then I'm going to look at the slope of OT. The slope of OT is 8 minus 3 over 6 minus 10. So I have -5/4. So that proves that this is a right triangle with the hypotenuse DT. So I just need to find the midpoint of the hypotenuse, and I will find the center of this circle. So the midpoint of DT is, let's see, 1 plus 10 over 2 and 4 plus 3 over 2, which gives me a midpoint at 11/2 and 7/2. Then I need to find the radius because I'm writing the equation of the circle. So the radius is equal to the square root of the center, 11/2, to one of the points. You can choose whichever point you want. I'm going to take D. So 11/2 minus 1 squared plus 7/2 minus 4 squared. So I have 11/2 minus 2/2 gives me 9/2 squared, and then 7/2 minus 8/2 gives me 1/2 squared. So I get 36/4 plus 1/4. So the radius is the square root of 37 over 2. So now the equation of my line, I'll just write it up here at the top, is x minus 11/2 squared plus y minus 7/2 squared equals 37/4. Number 7, find the vertex axis of symmetry and write the equation of the parabola with a focus at -3, 5 and a directrix at x equals 1. And you don't have to be really precise with your graph. You're just trying to get an idea of what this looks like. So you have the focus here, and then the directrix is at 1. Remember, the vertex is halfway between those 2 points, so the midpoint of that line between -3 and 1 would be at -1, 5, would be my vertex. Okay, so there's my vertex. I know that it opens to the left. I know that it is P units between the vertex and the directrix, or the vertex and the focus. So I have my vertex. I need to find the value of A. Remember, A is equal to 1 over 4P. So A is equal to 1 over 4 times 2, which is 1/8. So the equation of this parabola, remember it opens left, is going to be x is equal to negative 1/8 y minus k, be careful with that, squared, minus h. And that would be the equation of that parabola. Last one, number 8. Find the vertex, focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry of the following. So again, I'm going to get this in the standard form, y is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k. So I'll add the y to both sides. Y is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 16. So I'm going to divide b by 2, so I'm going to add 4 here and subtract 4 here. That keeps my equation balanced. Then I'm going to take this perfect square trinomial and write it as a binomial squared. So now I have the vertex of my parabola is at 2, 12. My value A is 1. So 1 is equal to 1 over 4p, so p is equal to 1/4. So then, if I wanted to, I could sketch this just so I make sure I'm oriented correctly. I have 2, 12, and I know it's opening up. Okay, so I'm going to add that p units to the vertex. So it's going to go up 1/4, so it's 2, 12 and a fourth for the focus. The directrix then would be at y is equal to 11 and 3/4. And then the axis of symmetry is going to be at the x-coordinate, x is equal to 2. That covers most of the information that will be on the quiz. I'll see you tomorrow.